Hey, welcome to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Think Thursday is all about your beautiful, brilliant human brain. We're talking neuroscience. We're talking behavior change. We are talking about your mindset. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Hey there, it's Molly, and welcome back to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist. Think Thursdays are all about our beautiful, brilliant human brains. We explore mindset, neuroscience, and brain health. And today we're diving into something that you've probably seen in the headlines. It's microplastics. These are tiny bits of plastic that may have made their way into our oceans, our soil, our food, and even the air we breathe. And you might already know that they're an environmental concern, but new research suggests that microplastics may also affect the brain. And that's why we're talking about it. Just this month, scientists published a study showing that mice carrying a genetic risk for Alzheimer's developed memory problems and brain changes after being exposed to polystyrene microplastics. In other words, what's floating around in our environment may be influencing how our brains age and function. So, today we will talk about what microplastics are, how they may be interacting with our brains, and most importantly, what you can do in your daily life. Because while we can't control everything in our environment, there are steps we can take to protect our brain health and keep moving forward. Let's start with some basics. Microplastics are fragments smaller than 5 millimeters, and they come from all sorts of sources. Plastic bottles and bags breaking down into smaller pieces, synthetic fibers like polyester shedding fibers in the wash, even microbeads that used to be added to face washes and toothpastes. And the problem is that microplastics don't biodegrade, they actually accumulate. Here is a statistic that you may have heard already. I definitely have. One study estimated that the average person ingests about a credit card's worth of plastic every week. Think about that. Every 7 days, the amount of plastic in your system could equal the weight of a credit card in your wallet. And these particles have been found in some surprising places: in lungs, in blood, in placental tissue, and yes, even in brain tissue. Which raises a big question. What are they doing once they get there? This is where environmental neuroscience comes in. And environmental neuroscience is the study of how our surroundings, from air pollution to toxins to climate change, affect our brains. Yes, there's actually a division of neuroscience called environmental neuroscience. And we've already seen evidence that fine air pollution, what's called PM 2.5, is linked to cognitive decline and dementia risk. And now scientists are looking at microplastics as another possible piece of the puzzle. The study I mentioned earlier is important because mice carrying the APOE4 gene, and that's the same gene that increases Alzheimer's risk in humans, mice that carried that gene developed memory deficits after being exposed to microplastics. Their brains also showed inflammation and cellular changes that were similar to early Alzheimer's pathology. So why does this matter? Because these are mice, right? So these are not human studies, but it suggests two things. Number one, microplastics may be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. And the blood-brain barrier is basically the brain security system that keeps harmful substances out of the brain. And it also says, number two, that environmental exposures might interact with genetic vulnerabilities. If you already have risk factors, toxins like plastics could accelerate problems. So that's definitely important and sobering, right? It's also a powerful reminder that brain health isn't just about habits, it's about the environment that we live in. What might actually be happening inside the brain? Do we even know what microplastics might be doing inside the brain? Let's break it down. So we just talked about how in the mice study, their brains showed inflammation. So, neuroinflammation. When foreign particles cross into the brain, immune cells called microglia react and they flood the area with inflammation, basically trying to protect you. But chronic inflammation actually wears down neurons, especially in sensitive areas like the hippocampus, which is the seat of memory. Number two, another thing that happens that we think that microplastics might do in the brain is create oxidative stress. You've heard of this before. Plastics may trigger an imbalance of free radicals and damaging brain cells, much like rust corrodes metal. Over time, this weakens the brain's ability to repair and maintain itself. And number three, what might happen in the brain is disrupted signaling. If plastic particles lodge in brain tissue, they could interfere with communication between neurons. And that means slower processing, weaker focus, and potential mood changes. And here's the practical connection. Inflammation and oxidative stress don't just show up in big diseases like Alzheimer's. They show up in everyday life as brain fog, irritability, trouble concentrating, and difficulty sticking with new habits. So when you feel off, it's not always about willpower. Sometimes it's your brain using energy just to deal with stressors in the background. I will give you a personal example. A couple of years ago, I switched from storing leftovers in plastic containers to using glass. At first, it felt like a small, silly change, kind of. I'd used Tupperware and plastic Rubbermaid containers forever. I was like, did it really matter? But, I have to say that whether or not I can actually attribute um, like, any type of brain health to that in the short term, what I did notice is that it gave me a lot of relief psychologically, just believing that it's doing something better for me. Right. And so that's just as important, I think. Once I started reading more about plastics and brain health, it seemed like a very good idea and something that was a small change that I could make. I've also thought a lot about that credit card a week stat. And imagine if your doctor handed you a credit card and said, chew on this. You'd be horrified, right? But that's essentially what's happening slowly, invisibly. Sometimes it takes a vivid mental picture to remind us why these little changes, like choosing a a reusable metal bottle instead of another plastic water bottle, actually matter. And so here is the good news, right? You don't have to be perfect. It is progress, not perfection. And that applies to this just like it applies to everything else I talk about. Every step you take reduces your exposure and removes the bigger system and moves the bigger system in the right direction. Here are 7 practical steps that you can try. Number 1, cut single use plastics. All right. So bring your own bags, bottles, and containers. Just get rid of single use plastic bottles because there's just too many of them in the world and they are responsible for a large portion of this microplastic problem. Number 2, filter your water. There actually is the activated carbon filters. Can help reduce microplastics, they believe. So that's an easy one in your house. Definitely don't be like me for years and years. Skip microwaving in plastic. Use glass. Do not use plastic. Use paper. And obviously, or just heat it up on the stove in a stainless steel, pan. Uh, I don't even want to think about how many times I've microwaved things in plastic over the decades. It's many. This is something I think number 4 is something that I think all of us can do a better job at. It's choose natural fibers. Cotton, wool, and linen shed fewer microfibers than synthetic polyester. Number 5, wash clothes in cold water. It reduces microfiber shedding, and laundry filter bags can help too. Number 6, I said it about bringing your own bags. I've talked about it just a minute ago, but really rethink bottled water. Studies show bottled water often contains more microplastics than tap water, especially when the tap is filtered. So not only do the bottles shed out into the environment, out into the air, they don't biodegrade, but they also are, we know leaching plastic into the water itself, and then you drink the water. So rethink your use of bottled water. And number 7, support bigger change. Policies that reduce plastic waste and promote biodegradable alternatives are critical. And your choices as a consumer and a voter matter. So please make sure that you do that. Here's the mindset piece that I want to leave you with. It can be easy to feel overwhelmed by things like microplastics because they seem so out of our control. But remember, awareness is always the first step. Once you see a pattern, you can begin to make different choices. And protecting your brain is never about one big thing. It's about many small things working together. Alcohol, sleep, stress, nutrition, and yes, even the environment are all parts of the same ecosystem. When you make small, thoughtful shifts, you are not just reducing microplastics. You are sending a message to your brain: I care about you. I'm taking steps to protect you. And that builds peace and trust with yourself. So here's the takeaway. Microplastics are real. They are everywhere, and they may be influencing the brain in ways that we're only beginning to understand. But this isn't a story about fear. This is a story of empowerment, because every choice you make, from the bottle you drink out of to the clothes you wear, can help protect both your brain and the world around you. That's all I have for you this week, my friends. Until next time, choose peace, and I will see you on Monday.